This is Scott Carpenter, and welcome to the Sasquatch Awareness Project. In this episode, I'm going to talk about signs of the presence of the Sasquatch. So we're moving on from what do they look like, and I kind of wanted to go over in part one here of the signs that you have Sasquatch in the area. And this could be in a hunting area, this could be on your property, this could be where you hike. It's important that you educate yourself on the signs. Just like deer leave signs, other wild animals, raccoons, possums, bears, even people leave signs of their presence. Once you learn and clue into what the Sasquatch leave, or what they do as far as leaving footprints or tree structures, etc., then when you're in an area, you're hiking, you're hunting, you're camping, if you see these telltale signs, then you can be more aware that the Sasquatch are near and around, and take the proper precautions. So, in the quick overview, the major signs or things that you may or may not see when a Sasquatch are in an area are, of course, footprints and handprints, and of course on the ground. And the footprints are going to be abnormally large, and they're going to be in a location where they shouldn't be. And usually there's going to be, if you see like toe spray, or you see the foot moving, in other words, if someone's trying to hoax you, the foot's going to be pristine, the same every time. But if it's a living, breathing creature, then you're going to see variations in each footprint, just like you would if you took if you walk in the sand. And it's a good example. Sometimes you're on the balls of your feet, sometimes you slip a little bit, and so those sort of footprints are a sign, especially abnormally large. Anything from 12 to 22 inches or larger. And so that's an obvious sign, and one of the most common are the footprints. But that definitely will give you an idea that in this area, wherever it is, you've got Sasquatch in the area. Now, Sasquatch, they are small. They're a breeding population. They have children and infants, and they go all the way through to adults. Usually, until they get some more weight on their body and heavier, their feet don't go completely flat. And so you may find human-looking footprints in the human range, but usually it's like, again, it's in an odd area. Hang on, I think I got a car coming. I'm in the mountains in a remote cabin. I don't know how remote. Hang on. Slow down and wave at the Kentuckians. But yeah, if you haven't figured that out, I'm right outside the Smoky Mountains in a cabin. So, taking a final vacation here in December before, Christmas and New Year's and all the work push. But yeah, you can see smaller footprints, and like I said, they're usually they're like you're hiking on a trail, and it's it's 30 degrees and it's been rainy and muddy, and you find a footprint or a series of footprints that's of a barefoot. That's unusual, and human beings, unless they're some sort of feral throwback, don't walk around barefooted. But as they get larger and older, then their foot will flatten out, and they'll have a big square wide heel, and the footprint loses its the curve, the arch curve, that goes away, and they go into a flat foot because they never wear shoes. A human being will do the same thing if you never put shoes on. Your feet will eventually flatten out, and you'll get a very thick, heavy pad on the bottom of your feet. So I did this when I was kids. We could run to, we took our shoes off as soon as we got out of school for the summer, and I didn't put them on, shoes on except to go to the store or church. And so we would, we would build up very heavy calluses. We could stand on the pavement when it was hot, and our parents would be, tenderfooting it around. My mom's actually picked glass of our feet before. We liked to mess around in ponds and stuff that had broken glass in it, and our calluses were so thick that little shards of glass wouldn't even penetrate. I can remember laying on the floor and putting my feet up in my mom's lap, and she would take tweezers and pick the glass out and throw it in the ashtray and cling, make a little noise. So it can even have, the same thing with the Sasquatch, except instead of a few months of calluses, they've got a lifetime. And and it also, once you get your foot that calloused, you talk about movement, feel, you talk about how quiet they are. Well, they're literally barefoot, in the forest, so they can definitely feel what's under them, and they can feel the terrain, and so it aids in them moving extremely quiet. Another thing, and let me go over some of the main points, and then I'll circle back around. You got footprints, you got stick structures or structures, either in the trees, on the ground. It could be either way, and the structures could be sometimes they're rock stacks, sometimes they're tree formations, bending a tree, making an X, making a glyph, in other words, putting sticks on the ground in a certain pattern, sometimes leaving a single footprint as a sign, to other Sasquatch, this is which way I went. Shelters, finding makeshift shelters, and those are a little bit more iffy, but sometimes in certain areas they do like a makeshift shelter or maybe a hunting blind, and you can cue in on those. Signs of their presence, of course, are gifts, strange gifts, like make no sense gifts, like like a blue jay feather laid right in front of the door, center. Okay, one time, coincidence. Well, if it happens, 3 days in a row, 4 days in a row, then you got something going on. Or rocks lined up in a row, 3 and 1 or 2 and 2, or in a circle. Those sort of things. There's a myriad. Basically, you're looking for odd things that are coincidences, but your gut's telling you there's something going on here. And so one time is not a gift, but if usually they're persistent, usually they're going to do something only and you'll recognize. So we'll get deeper into that. Vocalizations, of course, nowadays with the TV shows and everything, vocalizations could be suspect, but if you're in a remote area or if it's odd time of night, vocalizations, anything from yells to whoops, sounds that sound like someone blowing a horn, a train horn, out of play. I've heard like a trumpet blowing in the middle of, in the Smoky Mountains, in the middle of literally nowhere. Here in this area where I'm camping, I've heard train whistle noises, or what sounded like train whistles, and I've looked, there are no trains. The closest train is Dollywood in Sevierville, so I don't think I'm 40, 50 miles away or more from that in this area. So odd, out of place noises. Sometimes mechanical noises that are odd and out of place. And then you got you got your roars. Like I said, you got your whoops. You've got hearing mumbling. What I call it the mumbling. Other people do. Basically, what it is you're in the woods. It sounds like a group of people are coming towards you or talking, but they're just out of earshot, so that you can tell people are talking, but you can't understand what they're saying. Or you hear that, but it's extremely deep, extremely guttural. It's almost too deep, too with the bass. Well, good grief, what's making that? Hair can be, we're all shedding hair constantly. Just check the bottom of a bathtub, but the Sasquatch are the same way. Odd or strange tufts of hair found, that don't match deer or bear or, and hair, most time people are looking for hair, but sometimes, like, if something's, getting into your garbage, or something, lots of times somebody will just see one and they'll leave hair behind, like when they cross a fence. But hair can be strange tufts of hair. Feces, it's harder to find. Sasquatch feces, they're very, they're just very discreet. Some people claim they actually go in water sources, so they can't be found. But there have been a few people who have found some, and it's basically, the ones I've seen look like human feces, except it's extremely large. I've seen some as big around as my arm. And there is, of course, there's bear poop, but it's different than bear poop. And what it just looks like a human being had a bowel movement and just left it out in the woods. But it's odd, but it can be found, and it's something you need to be aware of. A strong stench, again, the ones I've smelled smell like a wet dog sprayed with a skunk that rolled in something dead. I mean, it is a putrid smell. If you're hunting or hiking, usually people smell it, and it's accompanied by some other display. It's usually like, get out of here, I don't want you here. Or, people are getting the creeps, and they smell this, and they'll smell them. And I don't know, there's debate whether they can produce the smell when they want to, and not at other times. If you're downwind, some people have had encounters and not smelled anything. Other people, smell the garbage dump smell. I've smelt them, and if you get close enough and get a good whiff, just so you'll know it's legitimate, it will make you almost sick at your stomach or want to throw up. And it did me. I mean, it was like the smell of a dead, rotting corpse. Like you find a deer or something like that, and then with the other stuff mixed into it. So it can be nasty. Orbs and strange lights. It all ties together. But one of the things that sometimes either happens after or before a Sasquatch sighting or Sasquatch activity is people see lights in the woods. They see orbs in the woods. See a UFO. And so be aware that all these different things are related. So if you see orbs, if you see UFO, and when I mean orb, like a group that I spoke to a couple years ago, were down in Cherokee National Forest, and they two different sets of they went on their outing at night, and multiple witnesses, in the remote wilderness, saw a red orb they described somewhere around the size of a softball, and they all watched it as it maneuvered intelligently around and up around trees, and just went, all, through the woods. And one of them got a little bit of video of it, and of course, in the woods at night, it's just a red glowing light. It's like someone has a flashlight, with a red filter on it. The problem is this flashlight goes 30 feet up in a tree and then comes down low to the ground, that sort of thing. It's obviously not someone walking with a red flashlight. And two different groups at two different locations. So that's what I'm, when I say orbs, sometimes that's what there's all kinds of different orbs, but those sort of lights, and of course your UFO or your strange lights. Property destruction. When I say that, I'm talking about things that happen to your property that would obviously is not a bear and would require thumbs. Like lots of times it's not even property destruction. It's just like you know, you have a chicken coop and you have a latch, and it's you know, it takes an opposable thumb, or you have a lock on it. Lots of times, like the lock and the clasp will be just ripped off and thrown. The door will be open, the chickens will be gone. That sort of thing. Tree fell in the woods. It happens. It's weird. Anyway, maybe that may have been somebody dropping some lumber. I don't know. That's weird. But we'll keep going. So, right on cue. Thank you, Sasquatch. Nah, that's probably somebody doing something. Here comes a car. So that's probably what that was. Let's let the car pass. Hang on. It's going to take him a minute to get around. But, yeah, here he comes. Let the truck come around. Got a wave. He's a local. Oh, okay. So, I'm hoping that was the noise. I think he made that noise. But back to property destruction. You know, remote cabins with the doors torn off, where it's not bear activity. This is usually associated with them breaking in to get food, you know, livestock food, or steal chickens, or get goats or whatever. And that kind of goes into the next point and the final point for today in this introduction here, part one, is, you know, pets or your livestock go missing. Now, coyotes take their fair share of, especially cats and dogs in rural areas, so that you have to be aware of that. But, you know, when something goes into, you know, your chicken coop and gets 2 or 3 chickens, but leaves the rest, and it obviously took someone to open the door and close the door, or open the latch. Same, you know, things thing with a barn. Someone goes in, you know, somebody opens the door, goes in. You know, there's obviously you know, horse feed or cattle feed or whatever, sweet feed. It's open, they take it. Dog food, I know people that, you know, I've had issues with them taking dog food before, but I've known people, you know, will have a bin in the barn for the dog food, or have a place on their porch with dog food, and, you know, 50-pound bag of dog food will disappear. Not ripped open, not scattered. I mean, literally disappear. And then and one guy basically, you know, 50-pound bag of dog food on the porch, disappears. 2 or 3 days later, the empty bag shows back up on the porch. So that sort of stuff. And some of the weirdness that we can get into, or we call it weird. I don't know if it's weird. It's just, you know, it's odd. You know, a raccoon usually doesn't carry off the 50-pound bag of dog food, eat it, and then bring the empty bag back, unripped. You know, just the top torn out of it, just like a person would. So that's an overview and a start to the signs of the Sasquatch presence, and we'll get into it next part. We'll get a little bit deeper into the footprints and handprints and the structures, and we'll just break this down and we'll get into the details. And so getting close to Christmas, a couple weeks away here, I think, and everybody just be careful. We're having a lot of rain and abnormally warm weather for December, but everybody just be careful out there, be safe, and until next time, I'll talk to you later.